Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Stan Osserman. It must be Wednesday because Hawaii, the state of clean energy, always happens on Wednesday. Stan is the director of HCATT, which is the Hawaii Center for Advanced Transportation Technologies. I understand they're putting that to music, and soon. Hi, Stan.
Good morning, afternoon.
And you know, hydrogen's the word of the day. That's why we're calling the show Hydrogen is a Gas, because it really is.
That's a fact.
Taking over the world, hydrogen. So you sent me a couple of articles, and I'd like to explore that and just sort of, triangulate around where hydrogen is going these days. It certainly is in the news, and it certainly has great promise. The one thing, I've always been high on hydrogen. That's another show title, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
High on hydrogen.
I like that one.
I went to the car show a couple of weeks ago. In fact, we made a movie about the car show for OC16, which is very interesting. And the star of the show, at least in my perception, was the Miura, made by Toyota, a hydrogen car, and it's in production. Mm-hmm. It's $57,000, but it'll get cheaper.
And worth every penny.
Yeah.
Had nice interior. I mean, it was on the class with a nice BMW.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think it's out of line, 57,000.
So what do you think about it, from the point of view of the mechanics and functionality and consumer use?
Well, the Mirai is the one car that I haven't driven yet, the hydrogen fuel cell car I haven't driven, but I have talked to one of the folks at Department of Energy, a gentleman by the name of Greg Moreland, who got to drive the Mirai when they demonstrated it. He said it was a fantastic vehicle to drive. And one of the things that makes it fun to drive is that because the fuel cell has been made so compact, it's actually underneath the center console in the vehicle, and it keeps the center of gravity very low, so the car performs very well like a race car. And that's one of the advantages of that technology is you can arrange the components so that it keeps the CG low and handles really well and gives it great handling performance. So aside from the Mirai being a really beautiful car, a very functional car, a very high performance car, it's a world-class act. It's a nice piece of equipment.
Yeah, and this is not experimental or anything. You're not taking any real chances on this. It
Right.
works.
Toyota initial demand was they anticipated like 1,500 or so vehicles, and their initial demand was over double that. So they've committed to increasing demand. They've converted one of their Lexus plants to just make the Mirai.
And Lexus is a high-end car,
Right.
therefore all the tolerances will be high-end.
Right. And you're looking at really a hand-built car at this point. It's in production, but the production rate is like 3 or 4 vehicles a day. It's still pretty low right now. So it's pretty much a hand-built car. So for 57,000, that's really not out of the park, and it's a very nice vehicle.
It's going on sale in California now.
Right. Sometime later this year.
Yeah.
It's on sale in Japan now.
Yeah.
It's going on sale in California later this year.
Yeah.
And with any luck at all, Surfco will have a couple of them in Hawaii, probably in 2016 or maybe early 2017.
Yeah, we should all live so long, and we should put our name in with Toyota and see if we can't get one. That's what.
My name's right near the top of the list.
Why did I know
In fact,
that
I'm going to
already?
pay $58,000 just to get the first one.
But the great concern is, wait a minute, didn't they just tell us we should buy an electric vehicle? A Leaf, for example, and some of us went out and bought it. Not that many, but some of us. Now they're telling us, telling me anyway, forget about the Leaf, this is better. It's like leapfrog. Let's go to the next step. What do you think?
Well, I think there's a market for both. Folks that have PV on the roof and can generate their own electricity and don't drive a long distance, maybe do a 20 or 30 mile round trip to work, a plug-in electric is perfect. You get the most efficiency out of the battery and the motor combination. But for folks who have a longer commute or a real busy schedule where they may not have the time to charge up and their day gets really cramped and they've got to travel 60 or 100 miles, and they're a little worried, the fuel cell electric vehicles give you some more longer legs, a little bit more range and distance without what we call anxiety, the charging anxiety of having to plug in your vehicle someplace or you're stranded.
That's 300 miles.
Yeah,
that's way longer than anything today.
Right. So places, especially like the Big Island, these kind of vehicles we're certain are going to be really popular.
Yeah. What about charging a hydrogen car? You have to have a charging station somewhere.
Okay.
You can't just plug it in, even though it is, at the end of the day, it's an electric.
Right.
But it doesn't have a battery big enough to plug it in like the Leaf.
I've talked to the folks at General Motors as they develop their production model, and I asked them if they were going to plan on having the plug-in port, and they said not at this time because they're trying to keep the cost to a minimum. But I agree with you. The big vehicles that we make at HCATT for the Air Force, they're all plug-ins as well. So, like for example, the crew bus that we have and the buses we made for Volcano National Park, they're all equipped with a plug-in charger port that gives them about 30 miles just on the battery.
The interesting thing about that is that if there was a plug-in in all these, cars that are ultimately electric, then there would be a common denominator.
Sure.
And you'd always have, the infrastructure would serve them all.
Right.
Be a good thing. So this may happen. The other thing is, so can I carry around a tank of hydrogen? Can I have one in my garage? Is that a practical approach?
You mean like to do a swap thing?
A swap or some kind of
charge?
Yeah. Fill up, okay? I remember, that it takes only 90 seconds to fill the tank if you're at a charging station.
But that's because the charging station has a high quantity of stored hydrogen at pressure.
Yeah.
If you only had a small quantity at home, even if it was under pressure, as soon as the two tanks balanced out, so you'd have to have quite a bit of stuff stored at home.
Yeah.
But what you could do is if you had, and I've given this example before, if for example you had a solar water heater to heat your water and PV on your roof to make electricity, but instead of being attached to the grid, you made hydrogen and stored it at low pressure, maybe 200 or 300 pounds per square inch in like a propane tank outside your house. Now you have a fuel cell car, you drive home, and at night when your solar's not making any more electricity, you plug your house into your car and let your house run off your car electrolyzer or your fuel cell. And then all that hydrogen you made all day, you pressurize it and pump it into your car under pressure. Now that way you don't store that much hydrogen, but you're not making tons of it a day. You're making about 2 or 3 kilograms a day, and you have all night to pump it into your car with a small compressor that does low volume, high pressure. So you can let it sit there all night. But if you need to leave, disconnect it and go, and then you could go to the station
and get a real high pressure.
Yeah, if you need it.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have a lot of sunshine, you're not making a lot of electricity. And that way, at home, you're always basically have your own power generation, and then you're also not paying for your gas most of the time. You're just taking it off of your solar array, which puts you on par with if you had a plug-in vehicle and you did similar things there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you have a system like that, then you don't need a plug-in in the car.
Right.
But, I remember my scientific training is imperfect, but can you make a liquid out of hydrogen?
You can make liquid hydrogen.
How do you do that?
In fact, a lot of the hydrogen that's scheduled to come into Hawaii is going to come in liquid form through one of the gas providers here, and they'll convert it into gaseous form here. But there are safety issues and storage issues with liquid hydrogen. It's number one, to get it liquid, you have to cool it to an extremely low temperature, and then keeping it at that low temperature requires very good insulation and specialized containers and things like that. So it's a little expensive to move around in liquid state, but if the volume is there, obviously the companies that deal in liquid hydrogen for profit, if the volume's there, they can make it work. I know that NASA uses liquid hydrogen that's made pretty much in the Northeast US, and they ship it in cryo containers all the way down to Florida for their rocket fuel.
Well, maybe that's the future, a whole infrastructure of liquid hydrogen where, hopefully one of these days we'll have hydrogen charging stations everywhere.
Yep.
And we have to move it around from some central point, and it'll go in liquid form as an efficient way to ship it.
I have a lot of confidence in science to get us there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so you think it's going to be successful, this new hydrogen Toyota?
I think it is, and I think there's some folks that still say fuel cells are way down the road and not quite ready for prime time. Toyota is banking on the fact that fuel cells are going to be the long-term solution.
Well, they've been successful before
Yes.
with their hybrid.
And you know, when you look at it as a gambling proposition, Toyota has invested quite a bit of money in the fuel cell technology, over $2 billion as I understand it, and 19 years developing some really impressive equipment that they've, by the way, released all the patent rights to other manufacturers.
Really? That's very nice
So
of
that
them.
so that they can basically get the market kickstarted.
Yeah.
So Toyota's kind of stepped forward, and when I see a company take those kind of measures to lean forward in a market and take a lot of risk on their own, I'd say that's worth banking on. That's something, because companies that have stockholders, they don't just go take that kind of risk for no good reason.
They're smart.
Yeah.
And they know that they're going to kickstart the
They've
market.
done their homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we go to the two articles that you sent me, which are critical in the show, I want to ask you about the aluminum car. Name is Phinergy, P-H-I-N-E-R-G-Y. Go look it up on Google.
Okay, I will.
It's an Israeli company
Okay.
out of Tel Aviv. And this is, again, beyond my scientific knowledge, but apparently it takes a lot of energy to make aluminum. We all knew that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also extract the energy out of the aluminum with a chemical reaction. So what they have done, this company, is they have done that. And it's fueled by bars of aluminum and ordinary drinking water, not even distilled water, ordinary drinking water. And you need to fill up a little tank with water every so often, but you can get water in a lot of places.
Well,
and then it has a 300 and some odd kilometer range, and they're actually testing it right now.
There's a lot of ways to make hydrogen. The ways that we look at as a state are trying to use the cleanest possible ways. And the cleanest way that we can do it is electrolysis. So taking water and splitting it using electricity. But there are other ways. You can steam reform it off of natural gas or methane, and you can make it chemically. If you take iron or you take aluminum or you take a metal and the appropriate acid with it, you will get hydrogen gas. Most of the problems they've had with producing hydrogen on board are safety issues. So
Explosions.
without knowing anything about this vehicle, I can tell you that those concepts have been explored earlier, and unless you deal with the safety issues of onboard hydrogen production, and I'm sure they have, but you have to take those into consideration. There's a lot of ways to make hydrogen. You can make hydrogen off of syngas and waste to energy programs too. In fact, if you look at the Toyota videos that they have on their Mirai, the president says you can even make hydrogen from garbage, and he's right. If you put it in a gasifier and make syngas, you can pull the hydrogen off the syngas
I
too.
don't know why. You just gave me this image of a car or a truck with the back filled with garbage.
Burning it as you go.
Burning it.
There you go.
And why do I feel that my wife is not going to do that?
No.
On this note, in order that I can get my breath back, we're going to take a short break.
Sounds good.
That's Stan Osserman, Director of HCATT, the Hawaii Center for Advanced Transportation Technology, here on Hawaii, the state of clean energy, talking about hydrogen. And as we know, it's a gas.
It's a gas.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on the Think Tech Digital Series. The show is every Wednesday from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and I want you to watch this show because I think that when we talk with artists on the show about what they do, how they do it, and most importantly, why they do it, I believe that it resonates within each of us, and we find something inside of ourselves that brings us closer to all of humanity. That's what arts are there to do, and that's what I'm here to do on this show. That's Center Stage. It's on every Wednesday from 2 to 3 o'clock. I hope to see you there.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I host a show called Healthcare in Hawaii here on Think Tech. We get together once a week or sometimes twice a month. Depends. When we're busy, we get together less often, but we love to see you here to talk about the preeminent healthcare issues in our state. Our programs vary very widely. We talk about economics, we talk about healthcare, we talk about social issues on this program. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're not kidding. We told you we'd come back. We came back, like MacArthur. here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We're talking about hydrogen, and as you know, it's a gas. With Stan Osserman, director of HCATT, the Hawaii Center for Advanced Transportation Technology, which is at 531 Cook Street.
Hey, you got the address now. I'm getting nervous
Look
now.
at your email.
Okay.
Anyway, so before we go further with the developments around hydrogen, I think it's really important that we talk about what is it, HB, House Bill 1296, which makes HCATT the manager, the coordinator for hydrogen, the hydrogen coordinator for the state of Hawaii. That's you, Stan.
That would be our office, yes.
Okay, what
That's
is it?
us.
What does it mean?
Well, this bill was put in by the Hawaii Clean Energy Forum, the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And the goal, I think, was to finally get one focal point in the state government where anybody that had to do with hydrogen vehicles or infrastructure or energy issues could kind of go to one place, and we could have a forum and talk about the possibilities of how we could get transportation tied with grid power to synergize off of each other's technologies, to use hydrogen for grid storage, but also make it available for transportation, to make the hydrogen electrolyzer that makes hydrogen give you oxygen for your hospitals. So somebody that kind of was the nest for all of these activities and could tie the parties together that need to work together. And so this bill does that and uses our office as the focal point. And then we administratively sit under High Tech Development Corporation, which is really good because at some point we're probably going to turn into a tech park, a transportation tech park for the state. But at the same time, this bill aligns me or associates me with the energy office directly, so that when I do the stuff with hydrogen, I'm tied to the energy office to make sure that we synchronize and we do things well there. So it's actually a good bill. And more than anything, I think it sends a signal from the state legislature to all the interested parties, whether they be non-for-profits or private sector or other government agencies, including federal agencies, and say, hey, we have a place to focus our efforts, and we're serious about this in Hawaii.
It does indeed.
So that's the best thing about
That's
the bill.
great. That's a really good move, good government, good government organization, and good guy. Congratulations.
Well, we'll see if it makes it the rest of the way through the
well,
sausage factory. As
And then we'll
calling
see
it.
what you do afterward.
Yeah, then I have to actually do all the work. So yeah, I hear you.
Okay, well, back to the main subject, and that is hydrogen, because hydrogen is a gas. So there's an article you sent me about hydrogen in China, and I'm really interested about that.
Right. This article is forwarded to me by one of my local networking partners, and it talks about a tram that's being actually produced in China that has about a 40 to 60 mile average leg, and it's rated to go about, I think, a max range of 60 to 70 miles on a single 3-minute fill-up of hydrogen at 5,000 PSI. And it carries about 300 passengers up to a speed of a little over 40 miles an hour. And they're looking at putting it into mass production. And Japan has already done some of this electric hydrogen train work. And now China's capitalizing off of moving some of their people. They have a lot of
city
them.
life. This
Right.
would be a city kind of transportation.
Or like to
device.
go from a rural area to an industry area, or so you can get your factory workers from where they live to where they work
with a
more efficiently.
defined linear path.
Right,
From this
exactly.
side to that. Why am I reminded of San Francisco? Yeah.
Or why are you reminded of maybe a rail project?
Ooh,
I mean, that,
ooh, yeah.
that's
See how
also
the
electric.
Technology
Yeah,
changes.
but you could look at that too. You never know. When I have that new committee, we'll start working on that one.
Okay.
But right now, I'm steering clear of the city's efforts
Yeah, smart.
for survival reasons.
So how do you do the hydrogen on both ends of the tram ride? You have to have a store of hydrogen on at least
Right.
one of the two ends.
Like I say, the infrastructure part of it is there's so many ways you can do the hydrogen. If they have a waste energy, production, there's a hydrogen source, so they could turn their garbage into hydrogen. If they had electrolysis and renewable energy, another process. If they have natural gas already, or coal or other things, they can they can convert that into hydrogen. And hydrogen is just a great way to store the energy, especially renewables, which by definition, if you have renewables, you need storage for the energy because the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. So if you're using those for energy sources, you have to be able to store the energy. And hydrogen is not the most efficient, but a very efficient way to store energy.
Probably get more efficient to go forward.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I was down in your place there, 531 Crook Street, I saw these big carbon fiber tanks,
Right.
which you have in a rack there. They looked, in my recollection, they were like 6 or 7 feet long,
Correct.
and they were maybe a foot and a half.
Yeah,
2 feet.
18 inches in diameter, yeah.
Yeah. And they look like big scuba tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And they contain hydrogen, and they're really strong because the fiber makes
Yes.
them really strong. They're not going to blow up on you. And so the question is that the standard already? Do we have a standard way to ship hydrogen around? Is it going to become the world standard? Because to me, the benefit, one great benefit of hydrogen is it's fungible. You can move it around. You can maybe make some here, make some there, and put them at a central location and distribute them. And
Sure.
the whole thing is so easy. I mean, arguably, you don't need an undersea cable if you can just move, for example, geothermally produced hydrogen on a barge around the islands. You can feed everybody with that. But how far along are we in terms of a standardized method of storing and shipping?
Okay, I can tell you that technically we're very far along. We're advanced to the point where the people that are dealing with the technology and hydrogen are very comfortable with the safety issues and aspects of it. Where we're not very far along is the public perception of shipping hydrogen around. There are still people that think Hindenburg or think hydrogen bomb or think that if you have hydrogen stored in your neighborhood, you're going to have a big mushroom cloud some weekend. And it's like that is the biggest problem, seriously, with the storage issue. The tanks, as you mentioned, they're the Type 3 tanks that we have. They have an aluminum alloy core wrapped with almost a ½ inch of carbon fiber and epoxy type resins. Those tanks, if they're rated to 5,000 pounds, they're tested to 15,000 pounds of pressure. They have safety relief valves at the end that will, if the tank is like in a fire, like a regular gasoline truck collides with a hydrogen truck and there's a big fire, if the tank gets overheated, it vents all the hydrogen right there and just lets it burn off.
Yeah, it goes straight up.
Right, and if you try and puncture the tank with a rifle shot or it gets punctured by a high-speed flying piece of projectile from another vehicle, and it punctures the tank, it escapes, the hydrogen escapes, and if there's no ignition source, it just turns into water eventually in the atmosphere. If it does catch fire, it's a very directional fire. It burns out quickly and you're done. So the firemen that have been trained, and in fact, we're doing a Young Brothers training this week on hydrogen safety, and the first responders that go through the training, they're much more comfortable with hydrogen than they are gasoline by the end of the training. It's a much safer fuel source to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to a fire department training, and I was
Mitch Ewan
quite
put it up.
impressed. Yeah, with
Right.
Mitch Ewan. I was quite impressed with how easy it was to handle it. But the one thing is you needed this device to see it.
Right.
Because when it's burning, it's like a perfectly transparent
Right.
flame.
The interesting thing, though, is when it's burning, if it's just hydrogen, it's almost invisible. But almost always, there's something around it that's got paint in it or rust or something, and you'll see a little orange or you'll see a little color.
Yeah, so it helps you identify
Right.
where it is and where
Right.
you shouldn't put your hand and so forth.
Right. But the other interesting thing, too, is because it doesn't have carbon in it, it doesn't radiate heat. So the flame that does come out is very directional and is not like a regular house fire or just bonfire where the heat tends to spread out laterally. It tends to focus where the hydrogen's going. And it's almost more like a torch rather than a big flowing flame.
Yeah.
And so the firefighters actually, they're big, when they go to like a fire at a house or something, if it had a hydrogen tank, they'd just be worried about the neighbors' houses and just watching them and keeping them cool. But they'd probably just let the thing burn or escape and not worry about much else because it won't naturally want to spread.
That's a lot easier to work with than
Right.
gasoline, because if you get the gasoline on you, then you become a wick.
That's right.
Well, going back to the question of the tanks, though, the tanks I saw at HCATT they were pretty big, and
Right.
I didn't try to lift one up, but I imagine that it's more than one man. It's more than a one-man lift, eh?
Yeah, mostly because of the awkward shape. But actually, if you went down to pick one up by the valve, you could lift up one into the
Really?
tank very easily.
Oh, well,
They're
that's
not very heavy
workable then.
tanks.
I mean, if you have a tank that's a one-man lift, that really,
Yeah.
that's very functional.
I would
then.
say those tanks weigh in the 100-pound range, 100 to 120-pound range, empty.
So that may be, well, but it can't be that much more full either.
No, it's
just
only 5
gas.
kilograms,
Yeah.
so that's
What's
what,
5 kilograms? Is it?
12 pounds or so, 15 pounds.
So, you know, it seems to me that this is, as you say, it's already down the road on the ability to consider it fungible and move it around and have stockpiles of it hither and sell it. I mean, I could see a time when you'd have it at a gas station.
Exactly.
And you'd just buy it and take it home and connect it up to whatever you wanted to your car, right?
Right.
You have a gizmo at home to do that. And
Sure.
when the pressure was down below a certain point and it was equalized or something with your car, and you'd go and get another one.
Right.
And by the same token, same tank, the utility could have lots of them connected up, and they could use that to generate
Sure.
electricity, whatever.
Easily.
Yeah. But why would the utility do that, though? Would the utility burn hydrogen to generate electricity, or would that be unnecessary or inappropriate?
As part of an energy system,
Yeah.
putting hydrogen out in a grid to help stabilization would actually make some sense.
Yeah.
A lot of people also need to understand that Hawaiian Electric uses hydrogen as the cooling element for their turbines. So they actually use hydrogen, as does the oil refinery uses hydrogen in its production. So,
And the thing about hydrogen is that you can control the burn rate, right? So like in Kapolei, there's this peaking plant. And the magic of the peaking plant is you can turn it on and off very quickly. So you can match load.
right, exactly.
And, hydrogen would help you do that.
Yeah, and if you take a hydrogen production fuel cell, stationary fuel cell, and match it up with good batteries as a system, then you have the batteries as kind of a buffer and what do they call a power cord, surge suppressor. It's kind of an inline surge suppressor with hydrogen, so that if you have a quick drop in the load, the battery can quickly pick up the load, and then the hydrogen fuel cell comes in right behind it and gives you all the power you need to help stabilize your grid.
That's smart grid kind of thing.
Yeah.
Quick response is everything. Dispatchable quick response power. That can help everybody, and it can help the grid, you know, in terms of be more sustainable equipment. Okay, we'll take a short break again, and we'll come back and we're going to talk about the Aston Martin.
Right.
And I'm going to go further with the idea you just raised, and that is this whole system of solar, batteries, grid, and I guess hydrogen's in there somewhere.
It's got to be, because it's a gas.
Okay, you'll see. We'll be back. Hydrogen is a gas. That's the name of the game. This is Stan Osserman, Director of HCATT, the Hawaii Center for Advanced Transportation Technology, here on Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We'll be right back. You'll see. I'm telling you now. You'll see.
Inspired by an ancient culture, classical Chinese dance, vigorous physicality, timeless stories, 5,000 years of Chinese music and dance, Shen Yun presents authentic Chinese culture. Coming to Blaisdell Concert Hall, May 8th and 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com or call 808-792-3919.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the Think Tech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to Think Tech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the Think Tech Hawaii broadcast network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here. I told you with Stan Osserman, Director of HCATT, the Hawaii Center for Advanced Transportation Technology. And HCATT, if you didn't know, is soon, I mean, not my view anyway, soon to be designated by the state legislature under HB 1296 as the hydrogen coordinator for the state. And it's perfect in terms of the historical moment of it, because hydrogen really is going somewhere. It's a gas. Anyway, so moving on with our discussion, the other story that Stan sent me was a story about hydrogen in an Aston Martin, and we actually have a picture of that. Can you describe?
Yeah, well, this is a company in Austria. First, I thought it was Australia because I'm dyslexic, but it's in Austria, named ALSET, A-L-S-E-T Global, and they've struck a deal with Aston Martin to make a hybrid hydrogen vehicle, and we have it up on the screen there. This is from their website, and we'll maybe try and get their website up there. But I'll just read it to you. ALSET, A-L-S-E-T @our-solutions/ and you can look at that vehicle just like it's on the screen there. But what it is it's an internal combustion engine that also has
gas engine with like
right.
petroleum gas.
It's a regular gasoline engine that's been modified with a turbocharger and some injectors, hydrogen injectors, and the controllers that go with it, and then hydrogen storage in the back. And this vehicle, they say, works just as a gas-powered Aston Martin or a combination hydrogen-enriched gas going into the engine, or just hydrogen. And the key to all this that I've learned working in this industry for a while is that hydrogen is a very energy dense gas. However, when you try and use it in an internal combustion engine, it doesn't function very well unless you give it enough oxygen. And that is what the turbocharger piece does. When you have turbochargers associated with this technology, or you take the carburetor off of it on a regular fuel injected engine and let as much air go in there, or ram as much air in as you can, then you start to get decent performance out of pure hydrogen. So the neat thing is, the vehicles that we have that are internal combustion that run off hydrogen, there's no carbon buildup on the spark plugs. You can run the thing for 20, 30,000 miles, pull the spark plug out, it looks brand new.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing on it, it's brand new. So this vehicle, number one, shows you the technology the new technologies coming out every day are amazing.
Including technologies that involve, fossil fuels.
Right, and this would be a perfect bridging technology as we try and get more interest in the purely clean fuel cell technology. This might be a great bridging technology that will also build the demand for hydrogen out in the marketplace to help the companies that are going to sell hydrogen get out there and sell hydrogen. It's still internal combustion. It gives you a flex fuel kind of feel where you can go, if you don't have the hydrogen, you can run on gas and you still have one car. And it's high performance. This is an Aston Martin. This is the 007 car. This is his.
I was going to ask you about that.
And
this is a Sean Connery car.
Right. This is a no joke race car, and to have a company like Aston Martin couple with a good hydrogen technology company and come up with a vehicle like this sends a huge signal to the world that hydrogen's here. It's here to stay.
Yeah, you're right. So was it 57,000?
No, I think this one's a little bit more, just a little bit more, probably a couple million, maybe. I don't know.
Oh my God.
But it's a neat car.
Yeah. Well, okay. So then there was one more article that you were talking about. I think we should talk about this because this is more on the local idea, and it's also conceptual, maybe points away to the future on a systems level. So Blue Planet reports a study by Rocky Mountain Institute where you're integrating a lot of these systems and making a kind of a perfect world, I guess.
Right.
Why don't you describe what the
Okay,
article
well,
about?
this article was sent to me by Paul Puntio from Blue Planet Research on the Big Island, and it points out that according to this Rocky Mountain Institute study, they looked at 5 major cities. They looked at Westchester, New York, Louisville, Kentucky, San Antonio, Texas, Los Angeles, and Honolulu. and looked at the renewables that we have out there already, the potential for more renewables, and the price of electricity. And they looked at those 5 cities, and Hawaii kind of floated to the top as the most promising place to try some rather innovative technology to help stabilize the grid and also absorb more renewable energy. And it would go something like this.
And that's because we have high prices right
Right.
now, so that makes the market interested.
And a plethora of renewables.
Lots of renewables, and because our grid needs to be upgraded.
Right, so as I mentioned earlier, whenever you have renewables, you have to have a storage medium with it. And the storage medium could be batteries, it could be flywheels, it could be pumping water to the top of a hill and letting it run through a generator coming down the hill. You can store energy a lot of different ways, and one of the ways is storing it in hydrogen. So this particular study says that if you start looking at some houses with PV that have battery backups in the proper proportion for their PV, that you are basically building in storage at each house that has PV on your grid. So as you know, Hawaiian Electric did an RFP for grid storage that was based on battery power, but they were looking at big mega batteries.
Enterprise.
Yeah, they're looking
size.
at like megawatt-sized battery
Yeah.
systems, where this study says if you take, instead of doing a large battery system, but you work with systems at an individual residence, they all add up to the same amount of storage, and if they're controlled properly, they can also feed your grid. This concept is not only being done with battery storage in fixed locations, but in California, the same folks that give me my funding for the research at Hickam Air Force Research Lab has a project at Los Angeles Air Force Station where all of their vehicles plug in and are part of the grid. They are basically online grid storage using the vehicle batteries. Because a vehicle battery, the ones on our big trucks are 28 kilowatt hours of vehicle battery storage. 28 kilowatt hours is a day's housing, use.
And you can't drive the truck all the time.
Right. So it's in there plugged to the grid and it has energy stored on it. So for a short period, if you have a peak or a spike, pull off the batteries, and then when your spike's gone, start recharging the vehicle again.
A holistic system.
Yeah. So
But let me explore with you in our remaining 5 minutes or so, this whole thing about distributed versus centralized. That this issue began, 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago in the Clean Energy Initiative. Oh, we have to talk about that too. And now, it seems like the needle is pointing to distributed rather than centralized. I mean, we don't have an undersea cable. Whether NextEra will come in and do that is an open question. It's got to be feasible for one thing. It's going to cost $1 billion. And we don't have a lot of large enterprise utility scale solar farms yet, although it seems like Hawaiian Electric wants to do that, and that apparently is NextEra's MO, to use large solar farms. But people still want to put them on top of their roofs. And if you put them on top of your roof, this is the way to go. It's Joe Saturnia. We've covered the Joe Saturnia's M-Power battery, which isn't cheap, but it's well enough affordable. As I recall, be $10,000 or $15,000 more than your solar panels for the average house. And that way, that's actually freedom, because then you really don't have to be connected. You have emancipated yourself with that equipment.
Well, and I think that when you look at the concept of a grid, which is how we've established our electric system, there's certainly going to be a need for a grid for a long time. But for some people, maybe a grid doesn't make a lot of sense. If you live in Alaska and you're 200 miles from the nearest town, why would you want to be on the grid? Every mile you have to push electricity through a wire, you're losing power. You're losing it to heat and resistance, and so in some concepts in Hawaii, on the Big Island, or maybe on the windward side of Oahu, there should be places that maybe aren't on the grid, but there's other places that have to be on the grid. So the places that have to be on the grid, let's look at all the solutions we can, and the ones that could be off the grid, maybe we should let them be off the grid and give them good, reliable power. And Hawaiian Electric could help manage that and help. I mean, they're electric experts. They should be helping people plan their home with the right battery power and the right controllers and help them be off the grid, but be the folks that you call when something's wrong with your batteries at home, and you call Hawaiian Electric, they come out and help service your grid at home.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can see picking up the phone, calling the utility company. Not only is the utility company well able to select the equipment, the components of the system, but they're able to engineer the system working together.
Right.
And so I would feel pretty comfortable and confident that they could do that. And I would call them and say, sell me a system and out of a catalog even, and make it work like this, and then come and fix it when it breaks.
Right.
And they're going to be around, knock wood, for a long time. Sure. So you don't have to worry about the company that installed it going out of business. Maybe that's the future. But I keep feeling and seeing distributed, about everything. I mean, for example, the islands used to be sort of part of a statewide concept, even equalization, an artificial equalization of rates around the state. But now it seems like the islands, each one goes by itself. Hawaii Island, they got already a co-op going on, and the mayor of Maui wants to have a muni. He wants to operate the utility himself.
Well, and Kauai has their own co-op.
Kauai has already, So which way is it going? I feel like you could tell me. I feel that you could tell me.
Actually, I think it's going to kind of go where you have the large, like the Kauai co-op 12 megawatt solar arrays take up a huge plot of land, but there's certainly a role there for large scale, renewable production. I mean, it's a shame that Hawaii, that has a fairly steady wind, we're the southernmost state in the United States, so we get more sunlight around the year than anybody. We have volcanoes, we have wind power, we have ocean power, we have ocean thermal. If you can think of a renewable, including garbage, we have more renewables than just about any place in the U.S. So why are we importing oil for transportation or for our power grid? I mean, there should be a solution somewhere in there. And what it'll take is a lot of good work by a lot of people who should be able to make money off of this. I'm not saying HECO should shut their doors and shutter everything. I think there's a business model that says HECO can do this and make money at it because they should be the professionals in our state. They're already established, so they should be able to make this work.
Yeah, it's going to take capital somewhere, either from HECO or from Nextera or a lender or from us. But we're going to have to pay for new infrastructure. It's a happy day because we have the opportunity to do that. Not everybody does, and that's the future. Investing in infrastructure and grid infrastructure to make all of this, independent of any fossil fuel.
Correct.
We can do this.
We should do it.
There's more to talk about, Stan, and I'm really sorry that we don't have more time. But I want you to come back soon, and we can explore other issues. God, there's so many sexy issues out there, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoy it with you.
Stan Osserman, director of HCATT, the Hawaii Center for Advanced Transportation Technology, thinking philosophically, thinking scientifically, thinking landscape here on Hawaii, the state of clean energy. And remember, hydrogen.
It's a gas.
It's a gas.